Hey, and welcome back. I'm Noah Casella. I'm a registered dietitian, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about will bad day of eating, or even a bad weekend of eating, will that cause me to lose all the progress that I've had? And so I've got some notes here. This is a question that I get asked quite a bit, and so let me frame this for us really quickly so we understand what's going on. So we're going to talk about why this is a yes and no answer to the specific question. We're also going to talk about the weight gain that you might be seeing, after, let's say, a bad weekend of eating, you weigh in on Monday and Tuesday, why that weight gain went up and what's going on there. We're going to talk about what to do next. We're going to give you some actionable steps on, what are some things and the mindset and the behaviors that we need to take in order to get back on track and continue with our weight loss. Then I want to quickly address the good and the bad of this, going off diet plan, maybe having some more fun food, maybe birthday parties, cake, hamburgers, pizza, versus the chicken, rice, and broccoli, the meal plan that you've been eating for the last, whatever, 6-7 weeks that you deviated from. So we're going to talk about the good and the bad in that section as well. So first and foremost, let's talk about this idea of will a bad day or a bad weekend ruin my progress? And I actually pulled this up here and I wrote this to kind of make this a little bit easier to understand, or at least see what's going on here. So let's say we had a bad weekend of eating, right? But let's say, hey, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we need to maintain our weight, which is about 2,000 calories per day. We have a deficit of about 500, and on Monday, we eat 1,500 calories. On Tuesday, we eat 1,500 calories. On Wednesday, we eat 1,500 calories. Thursday and Friday, we also eat 1,500 calories, right? So we're eating in a 500 calorie deficit, and then multiply that for the next 5 days. So, right, a net of about a negative 2,500 calories per day. Okay, so we got Monday through Friday, we netted this, but then Saturday and Sunday, we ate 3,000 calories, and we then ate on Sunday another 3,000 calories. So we went over our maintenance calories, give or take, and over our deficit by 1,500 calories. I think we can actually make this just 1,000 here. Okay, so I'm doing this left-handed. Terrible. Okay, so right, we went over 1,000 calories on both of those days, over our maintenance, and then also 500 extra calories over our deficit calories that we're normally eating. So in essence, we ate, call it either a break even, or we ate actually about an extra 500 calories. So yeah, when we have that net here, yes, we able to maintain a calorie deficit for the first, portion of the week, but the weekend we overate. And it kind of gave us a net, when we took both of these here, of about plus 500 calories, or we could say minus 500 calories. Nonetheless, it probably washed us out as far as any progress is concerned for just 1 week. And this is an important piece before I jump into the next piece, which is on such a micro scale, which is just a week. Of course, that progress that we, made during that course of that week, that Monday through Friday, yeah, that did unfortunately wash that out by over-consuming calories on Saturday and Sunday. And that's why meeting your calories is such an important component of this. But with that being said, that's just one part, right? That is just 1 week in what I'm assuming has been probably a longer journey for you than just 1 week. So that's what I put here in the second piece is, okay, so let's reframe this again, right? Okay, so now instead of this, right, this was maybe, when we look at this is why I drew this arrow down here, this was maybe on week 6 of your journey where we, had your birthday party or had your significant other's birthday party, and, we overconsumed calories, but we enjoyed the day, it was a lot of fun, cool, whatever. But right, we've been doing this for week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, and in this time here, we didn't have a Saturday and Sunday where we went overboard. So, on week 1, we were total a negative of about 3,500 calories. On week 2, again, negative about 3,500 calories. Week 3, 3,500 calorie negative. Week 4, 3,500 calorie negative, and week 5, 3,500 calorie negative. Right? When we looked at this part, we don't look at the week 6 where we had this, over consuming calories on Saturday, Sunday, or even like a cheat meal on one of these days where we blew our calories out of the water, right? We've still netted over 17,500 calorie negative deficit over the course of this 5 weeks, which probably gave us, 5, 6, we'll say it's between 4 and 6 pounds of total weight loss. Right now, are we undoing that with one day or even one weekend of over consuming calories? Probably not. So again, right, zooming out from this 1 week perspective and taking a little bit of a wider view or a macro view of your entire journey, saying, okay, great. You know, although on week 6 I did have 500 calories. Okay, well, let's add that. We'll add that to our negative here. We are still down 17,000 calories over the course of the past 5 weeks. So although, right, it may seem as if, and this is what we'll get into next, which is the weight gain, like we might have really undone, right? If you spent 5 weeks in a calorie deficit that was moderate, about 500 calories each day, and you were able to get into a negative 17,500 calories, you probably lost, you know, let's call this with this here, negative 4 to, let's say, 6 pounds of weight loss. So you were able to lose that much weight, but then, right, this one weekend where you overconsume calories, this is what I was going to talk about here. You know, you saw this weekend where, holy smokes, I stepped on the scale next weekend on that Monday or Tuesday, and I'm up 3 to 4 pounds. Did I just burn everything that I did, all this hard work for the last 5 weeks? Did I just ruin this by having one weekend where I was going over? And this is what I want to talk about and hopefully give you a little bit of reassurance here, which my answer to that question is no. And there's a few things that I want to point out here. So first and foremost, you've dieted for a while, you've lost that weight. It's been a really slow progress, and I guess progress would be the right word here. And you essentially stepped on that scale following Monday after your cheat meal or cheat weekend, so to speak, which I don't like those terms. I want to say that right now. Right? Food does not have any moral aspect to it. It's just food. It's just calories. And in fact, like if you were starving, ho-hos and ding-dongs, like those would be something that would be delicious, and it'd make sure that you were getting some calories in and weren't starving to death. So right, food is food, no matter what form it comes in. Okay, that being said, a little side note. You've been dieting for a while, then right, you step on the scale and that weight gain has gone up. What I want to say is this is not all fat accumulation. You didn't just put on those 3 to 4 pounds that you gained on that one weekend through fat, right? Think about it. You've been dieting now, let's call it 5 weeks. You've been eating super clean. You've probably had, you know, cooking all your meals at home, probably tracking your macros and hitting those. And then you go out and you have, let's say it's a pizza, say it's a hamburger, say it's, you know, maybe a couple sodas. Right, these foods that are typically what we demonize or call cheat meals or right unhealthy food, right, it's probably higher in sodium, it's probably higher in fat, it's probably higher in simple carbohydrate. And what's going on there is, right, yeah, sure, some of it might be shuttled in and made into adipose tissue, but the vast majority of that weight gain is going to be made up from a few components. And I think two that we can talk about here today are going to be sodium and carbohydrate. So first and foremost, right, like I mentioned, you have a piece of pizza, you have a hamburger, you average, let's say, 4,000 milligrams of sodium. You ate 4 grams of sodium over the course of those 2 days. So you had a total of 8,000 milligrams. Right, that is going to cause a lot of water retention. So you're going to have some of that weight gain is going to be directly correlated to simply just carrying around more water on your body. And this is especially going to be true if you've spent a lot of time dieting, eating super clean foods, and monitoring your sodium intake. Right, dumping a ton of sodium in over the course of a weekend, your body's just going to be like a big sponge, and it's just going to absorb a ton of water. Okay, so you've got the sodium component, but then there's also the carbohydrate component on the other side, which I think is another important piece to that weight gain. So again, you've been dieting for 5 weeks, you have been losing weight consistently, you've been monitoring your carbohydrate intake, you maybe have been working out pretty consistently as well, and so you maybe have never filled up what we refer to as our glycogen storages completely. And just to give you a reference point, when you can store carbohydrates specifically in the muscle and the liver, and you can store quite a few. If I remember correctly from the textbooks, it's like upwards of 400 grams of carbohydrate in the liver, and several other grams of carbohydrate within the muscle in of itself. And along with that is going to come water, with some water as well. So now, right, so you've been dieting for several weeks, you've never filled up these glycogen storages, then you go out and you have a weekend where you eat a ton of carbohydrate, probably some super simple carbohydrate. Again, your body is like a sponge, it's going to absorb that, it wants that. It's actually in a state of, I wouldn't, deprivation would be maybe a good word here, right? You're never just really overfilling the gas tank, I guess is a real good analogy here. So now you've increased your carbohydrate intake over the course of a weekend, you've filled up all those glycogen storage, which also pulled in more water into the cell as well, and also into your liver. So now your gas tank is completely full. So I guess a good analogy, again, with this car thing that we've got going on as far as gas tank is concerned, right? Think of it as like, okay, yeah, you're driving around and you have a quarter tank of gas. This is your dieting phase. You have a quarter tank of gas. You go and weigh your car. Of course, that car is going to weigh a ton less. But it's just dependent on how much gas it has. Then you go fill up that gas tank 100%, and you drive that car and you weigh it, and it of course weighs more because instead of having a quarter of a tank, it now has a full tank of gas. So there is going to be a significant amount of weight gain there as well. Now, those aren't bad things. They are just the result of the higher calorie, higher carbohydrate intake over the course of that weekend or cheat day. So yes, while you have gained weight and you've seen the scale go up from maybe that Friday when you weighed in, you ate Saturday and Sunday, then you weighed it again on Monday, you saw a 3 to 4 pound increase. You're thinking, holy smokes, did I just wash everything? No, rest assured you did not. And now, so what should you do next? What should we do next about this whole situation? The next best thing that I can recommend is get back on plan. So whatever that was before, if you're on your 1,500 calorie diet here, and that's what you were eating and you're comfortable with doing, get back to that. If you're working out 2 to 3 days a week and going for 10,000 steps per day, get back to that. Now, what I don't want you to do is to go to an extreme, right? You saw that Monday roll in, you saw that high weight. Now you're like, shoot, do I need to like drop my calories even lower? Do I need to increase my exercise? No, don't go there. Now, I want to caution you not to go there because what is going to end up happening here is if you go to one of those extremes, if you drop calories and you increase your physical activity, your ability to be sustainable at a lower calorie range with a higher physical activity output, that the amount of time or the sustainability that you'll actually be able to maintain that is just going to diminish. It's going to go really quickly to a point where you're going to be too hungry and too tired to maintain that any longer. And then now we're in a cycle of, okay, I dropped my calories super low after that weekend. I increased my physical activity. I was able to manage that for maybe a week or two, but then after that, I was so burnt out, I just quit everything and I just don't want to do it anymore. So I don't want that to happen for you, and that's why I'm bringing this up on what to do next. Is get back to the plan you were originally on, where it was sustainable, you were in a good groove, you could maintain it for 5 weeks pretty easily. It wasn't even a big deal. It was hardly noticeable. It maybe took a little bit of extra effort, but in reality, you weren't super hungry, you weren't super tired, and you're able to be consistent with it week after week. That's what I want you to get back to. I don't want to be like, cool, I'm gonna bottom everything out just to kind of lose this weight that I had. Get back to plan, don't go extreme, and be patient. It's gonna take, I mean, from a physiological standpoint, we could say 72 hours to even like a week for you to just get that sodium and water retention off of you. It could take another, 72 hours to a week for the carbohydrate in your muscles and the glycogen storage to kind of level out to what they were previously. So what I'd say is, yeah, get back to what your routine was. Maybe don't step on the scale for the next week, 10 days, so that you can kind of let things settle. They're kind of riding a high of high glycogen, high sodium, high water retention. Let that kind of flesh itself out for a hot minute, and really your goal is just to get back to your groove of your nutrition and your training piece. I would say also removing any of the triggers, right? If you bought a bunch of things that are in the house now that normally would be foods that you wouldn't eat, especially if you're on your diet plan, get those out of the house. You can give them away, you can toss them, right? If this is something you're serious about and you really want to get after, I think that removing kind of those trigger foods or those foods that, okay, yeah, I'm getting back to my diet, but I still have like the Oreos or, the leftover pizza in my fridge and plan to eat that for the next, like, don't let any of that trail into this next week. Just get back to your plan, get back to the routine that you know best. Remove any triggers. Those are going to be my best recommendations for you moving into what to do next. Okay, awesome. So now let's talk about the good and the bad of this overeating over the course of, let's call it a day or a weekend, a cheat meal or a cheat weekend. We can call them a refeed weekend or even a reward weekend if you want, as far as a framing or a mental concept that you can kind of wrap your head around. So let's talk about the good that could come from this first and foremost. So one thing that I see quite a bit, and even in my own weight loss journeys, and I'm bringing this concept up actually because this is something that happened to me this weekend. I've been cruising along. I've actually personally been doing about 2,700 calories per day. I've been strength training about 5 to 6 days per week, pretty intensely, and I've been focused on getting 12 to 15,000 steps per day. That's been my real goal that I've been trying to do. Okay, so this past weekend, I had a birthday party on Saturday. I had family visiting on Sunday, and even it tailed into Monday as well, where I, still had some lingering family, still going out to eat, and so it just wasn't really. Of course, I could have followed the diet. I make, there is, of course, any excuse that you can put in the book, but really what I'm trying to mention here is, I didn't want to miss out on the opportunities to hang out with people I didn't get to see very often. Didn't want to miss out on breaking bread and the social aspects that do come with food. Didn't want to miss out on any of that. I wanted to have a piece of birthday cake with one of my friends and their birthday party. And those are the pieces that, I wanted to enjoy some of these aspects of life that, are associated with food and kind of the social component that's wrapped around it. So all that being said, I deviated. I ended up consuming, I think, 3,700 calories on Saturday. It was close to 3,500 calories on Sunday, and I think it was another like 3,500 calories on Monday. So I really compared to my 2,700 calories I'd been on for a while, I'd really extended myself over that course of that weekend. And of course, I stepped on the scale and I was 3 to 4 pounds heavier. Okay, well, now, the good aspect of this, and even coming from this perspective right now, I've spent the last probably 6-7 weeks dieting at 2,700 calories, kind of eating boring foods. And so this past weekend was almost like a diet break. It almost gave me like this mental lapse or this mental break of consuming the same old foods, making sure that I'm hitting my workouts, kind of just the normal routine of things. And it gave me a new kind of motivation, a new excitement to come back into this week and really get after it. I had the reprieve after several weeks of dieting. I had a weekend where I had some fun foods that I hadn't had in a while, some pizza, some burgers, some cake. And then now, I'm coming back into it's Tuesday now, and I'm kind of fired up. I'm excited to get back after it. So I feel like there's a component of just having a diet break. And in addition to that, I'm interested to see, another component of that would be like this diet break and this mental component. Like, okay, I had a overconsumption of calories. I had an overconsumption of simple carbohydrates, overconsumption of probably fats in general, or added sugar, all those fun things. Okay, right? After 7 weeks of dieting, I started to notice, okay, I'm starting to get a little hungry. I'm starting to crave some of these foods. I'm having temptations, right? After a prolonged period of time. Now I had this quote unquote diet break or this cheat refeed weekend. Now I can kind of go into this next week, like not starving, not deprived, not like I've missed out on these foods for the past now going on 8 weeks or whatever, right? Instead, I kind of had a little reset point where, okay, now I can let that stuff be behind me. Hopefully the cravings will calm down. Hopefully the temptations will calm down. And so as far as a good aspect of what we would call maybe a refeed weekend or a higher calorie weekend after a period of dieting is the mental reprieve or the mental break from dieting. And in addition to okay, not only that, I had some fun foods. I had those things that weren't on my diet necessarily. And so now I can go into this next week with some excitement, with not feeling deprived, and go into this next week just motivated, ready to roll. So Now, the bad, right? Of course, there are bad components. I feel like I took a half a step back. Been dieting for a while. I think I've gone from, I don't know, like over the past 6 weeks, I think it was like 216 down to like 193 being my lowest, bounced back up to like 197. And so, yeah, I do feel like I took like a half step back, and that's hard to mentally grasp, and it's hard to mentally continue with saying, "Oh man, should I just give up on this whole thing?" No, of course not, right? In addition to that, I've also exposed myself to these highly palatable foods, like perfect crunch texture, perfect sugar to salt ratios, high sodium. Like I've exposed my tongue to these foods that haven't really been in my diet for the last call it 7 weeks. And so now, while I have maybe lowered the temptation for it, now with that exposure, would there be an attraction to continue that? And I would argue that there is. So it's like, yeah, part of it's like, okay, yeah, I had the diet break, but introducing those foods also caused, exposed me to like highly palatable foods that are, kind of light up your brain, right? It gives you all the happy drugs in your brain, your dopamine, your serotonin, right? It just fills your brain with those happy drugs, which is not a bad thing, but, right, that's the line and path of addiction to some degree. And so, yeah, introducing these highly palatable foods can cause triggers and cause like kind of a craving for these as well. So I would say back to the point of what to do next when we're talking about it, getting rid of those trigger foods because you're kind of already like prone to going back to them, right? They're perfect texture, they're perfect crunch, perfect taste. Food scientists are really good at making sure that we eat foods like Oreos, like chips, because like I said, they're perfect crunch, perfect texture, perfect taste, sodium to salt. Like everything's designed for you to eat more of it. So, right, making sure that those triggers are no longer in the house can be super helpful. And finally, I feel it. I feel a little bit going into this week. It's like, okay, I have to get back to my, normal meals. Like, I have to get back to the groove that I was in. And yeah, sometimes that can feel a little like, shoot, do I really want, like, right? It's like, I've been exposed to that. So it's almost like a little bit harder to get back in the groove. So I'm trying to use that motivation that I have from the diet break and seeing the progress that I have thus far and making sure that I'm carrying that over and really maximizing that motivation and making sure there's no triggers in the house and knowing that just I need to get back in that groove. I need to get back to having regular meal times, normal meals that are balanced. I'm eating all the food groups. I'm really focused on those pieces. And I would say like, although it's kind of weird and it's kind of like, but yeah, I mean it is. Uh, Poop. Let's talk about it, right? It's like right after that bad week of eating, like I can notice my digestive tract is not running as well. I can notice like my bowel movements are just not as regular as they were when I was dieting and eating the foods that I needed to eat. And so I think that from a motivation standpoint, while there is the temptation to go back to those foods, and there's that kind of bad, the good and the bad of this diet break and refeed or cheat day, whatever you want to call it, I think that there is the motivation that I'm trying to rely on is I want to feel good. I want to feel like my body's processing things. I want to feel like my bowel movements are good. I have this kind of quote that I like to say, which is, right, if your poop isn't in order, how can anything else in your house or your life be in order, right? Like if you start in with you're having regular bowel movements, you have good energy, you're sleeping right, you're getting your workouts right, everything's kind of lined up. Like I'm a high performer at work, I'm doing my best content, I'm creating my best, I'm helping my clients the most, right? Like I'm just on point. Versus when I'm not, right? After this weekend, a little bit of brain fog, digestion is messed up. I'm looking forward to getting back to that and relying on that motivation piece just to feel good beyond the idea of progress and weight loss or body composition. It's just that feeling of like, ooh, I'm on fire. My brain's feeling good. It's clear. I slept good last night. My bowel movements are good. All that fun stuff. So Will one bad day or one bad weekend ruin all of your progress? No. In the long term, no. In the short term, yes, you probably saw some weight gain, but we talked about what to do next. We also looked at the kind of the good and the bad of both things. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, where you're at. I hope this helped sharing some of my story with you guys. And if you like this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button down below, comment all your questions and thoughts, and I'd love to hear from you. So we'll talk soon.